Let me introduce myself. My name is Elizabeth Porter, and I am a linguist and a language teacher, and I believe in traveling with intent. And I'm going to explain to you what that means, traveling with intent. I'm also a firm believer in traveling as much as you can, as often as you can, with your children from a very young age, because it gives them skills that will take them through their whole lives. So I'm going to talk to you about that today, but first I'm going to tell you a couple of little stories to start out. The first story is, I travel all the time. In fact, I feel like I live on a plane right now because I travel all over the country and all over the world. In fact, I'm getting ready to leave for France in about 3 weeks. My family and I, we go to France for the whole month of August. Last November, I was speaking at a foreign language conference. I don't know has anybody heard of ACTFL? Okay, so ACTFL is the American Council of Teachers of Foreign Languages. It is the organization in the United States that basically sets all the language standards for all the language teachers in all of the United States. So I was speaking at this conference, and my husband said, it was in New Orleans, so my husband said, oh, I want to go to New Orleans. I've never been there before. And usually to get my husband to go somewhere, you know, it's like pulling teeth. Like, I travel with my kids and he stays home because he doesn't like to travel. But he also has to work. So for him to say, I want to go to New Orleans. So I said, okay, come with me. This was one where I left the kids home with my mom, and he came to New Orleans with me. So we're sitting on the plane, and the safety video comes on. And my husband's got his headphones on, and he's watching a movie, and I go like this, like, watch the safety video. And he goes back to watching his movie, and I said, come on, you gotta watch the safety video. And he takes his headphones off, and he says, Elizabeth, you travel like 30 times a year. Why do you need to watch the safety video? And I said, because I need to know the safety for this particular plane, because what if something happens? Now, if you can believe it, I am terrified of flying. True story. I am. I really am. So, anyway, I am so glad I watched this safety video this particular day. Now, I'm alive, as you can see, so nothing happened. But the message in the safety video was incredible. And so, yes, I am about to show you the Delta Airlines safety video. I have a reason for my madness, I promise. I'm going to show you like the first minute. And I just want you to hear the message that is in this video. And hopefully the sound will be okay. Oops, hold on. Nope, it says there's no sound. Well, okay. Come on. I'm on safety video. Hold on. And of course it's going to be technology and not work. There it goes. Oh. All right. Well, there's no sound. All right. So what we're going to say, you can read it. We're a planet of amazing differences, one of cultures and ideas that span the world and link us to each other. Whoever you are, wherever you're going, we are proud to fly you there, of course, because it's Delta. Because the first step towards connection is departure. Think about that. When you travel and you make the world your classroom and you travel with intent, you are traveling to connect with other people all over the world. There is a difference between a tourist and a traveler. Has anybody ever heard the quote, a tourist sees what he wants to see? A tourist sees what he wants to see. A traveler sees what he sees. Have you heard that before? I'm going to explain to you in this talk about what that means, and you will get an idea of the power of true travel with intent. So, moving on, I have another story for you. Meet Daniel. Daniel is my adorable, almost 11-year-old son. And Daniel has autism. Daniel, I'm doing a talk later this afternoon on the method I developed called Language with the Five Senses. And I'm going to talk about Daniel in that talk too. But basically, Daniel, I hear a lot, oh, my son has special needs, my daughter has special needs. This would be too overwhelming. And for a long time, I thought the same thing. And then I thought about it, and I said, you know what? My son deserves the same opportunities as every other child. And my passion is travel, my passion is language, and I want to give that to him no matter what. Now, he's got an IQ of 158. So he's on the very, very genius, intelligent end of the spectrum. He speaks French, because that's what we speak at home. He speaks English, and now he's learning Chinese. And he loves to travel. It doesn't matter where we're going, he loves to go there. Now, we have to make accommodations for him, but, like, he won't use the airplane bathroom. That's one that's a little hard on a 12-hour flight, but we deal with it. I mean, we make accommodations. So, Daniel has found places that he loves more than anywhere in the world, and one of them is Notre Dame. Has anybody been to Notre Dame in Paris? Okay, so Notre Dame is his special place. He knows when the bells ring. We have to go, when we're in Paris, we have to go stand in front of the cathedral every time the bells ring. Every time. I'm not kidding. He knows the time, and we have to make sure that we're there. He has to go inside. He says a prayer. He's very, he's very reverent. That is his special place, and he loves the story of Notre Dame de Paris, which is, does anybody know what that is? Hunchback. Very good. He loves that story. He knows all the music from both the French and the English versions. He's obsessed, basically. That's his thing. That and iPhones. I mean, he'll tell you whatever you don't want to know about your iPhone. I'm serious. So there are a lot of things that have benefited Daniel in traveling, specifically situational flexibility. Those of you who know about autism know that autistic people have a hard time being flexible sometimes. They have a hard time with change. And so, this has really helped Daniel understand that sometimes when we travel, things don't go the way we necessarily plan. We also don't travel with a set plan. So he knows that when we wake up in the morning, we're going to probably decide what we do that morning instead of planning everything out to the last second, which is what a lot of people tend to do. There is a term in French called a flâneur. Does anybody know what flâneur means? Anybody speak French in here? A flâneur is, the sense of it is a wanderer, a person who just goes out and sees the beauty of whatever there is. And that's what I teach my children, is how to be a flâneur. Okay, so, quote here, travel is fatal to prejudice, bigotry, narrow-mindedness, and many people need it sorely on these accounts. Broad, wholesome, charitable views of men and things cannot be acquired by vegetating in one little corner of the earth all of one's lifetime. That's by Mark Twain. Has anybody ever read The Innocents Abroad? That's an excellent book. Excellent. I think everyone should read that book. If you are a traveler, that's a great book to read. And Mark Twain was a traveler. And it's true. There's a difference between studying something and actually going and experiencing that thing. So we're going to talk about what is traveling with intent, some common travel myths, the power of travel, how to travel with the intent to connect, preparing to travel with intent. So what do you do beforehand? And then if we get to it, I'll share with you some of our programs. The point of this is not necessarily for me to talk about the school, but to talk to you about the thing that I love second most in this world. First being language, second being travel. All right, so what is traveling with intent? This is a term that I coined, and it is traveling to connect with other human beings, other culture, learning language, gaining life skills, and stepping out of one's comfort zone. Think about it. It is so incredibly easy to stay in your little bubble of comfort zone. It's only when you step out of that that you grow as a person. And we are never too old for that, right? When a person travels with intent, he or she experiences personal growth, empowerment, maturity, and a realization that he or she is part of something greater. So this is a quote I love. If you reject the food, ignore the customs, fear the religion, and avoid the people, you might as well stay home. I don't want to stay home. I want to go see all these things. Okay, so The Little Prince is my absolute favorite of all time, so I have to include something of The Little Prince in everything. This is a book, another book that every person should read in his or her lifetime. Absolutely, 100%. I have read this book thousands of times. I have The Little Prince tattooed on my body. That is how much I love The Little Prince. The quote is, "On ne voit bien qu'avec le cœur, l'essentiel est invisible pour les yeux." For those who don't speak French, it is only with the heart that one sees rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. Think about how powerful that is. Think about letting go of all of these material things and connecting with your heart. Okay. And by the way, The Little Prince is a French national treasure. And it is for a reason. It's the 6th most translated book in the world. All right, let's talk about some myths. First of all, myth number 1, it's expensive. Travel is the only thing you buy that makes you richer. I love that quote. If you think about all the stuff that we buy our kids, stuff is temporary. Experiences are forever. So my children for Christmas, they get something you can wear, something you need, something you can read, and an experience. And I'll talk about that a little bit more later. First, I want to tell you another story. All right, I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this in California, so just bear with me. Ready?
Yes.
I hate Disneyland. You too? Yeah. I hate Disneyland. Okay, so I hate Disneyland for a lot of reasons. I'm not going to go into all of them here because we would be here all day. But I want to tell you this story about Disneyland. So my mom loves Disneyland, loves it. So she's the complete opposite of me, right? And she kept saying, you have to take your kids to Disneyland. Your kids have to experience Disneyland. And I'm like, well, you know, Mom, I love you, but I would rather take my kids to see a real castle where real royalty lived instead of a fake princess and her fake Prince Charming, right? But the other thing about Disneyland is it is so expensive compared to what you could do that you could have a learning experience from. Now, don't get me wrong. There is a place for traveling like that where you have just a family bonding time, a family connection. But for me, I would much rather have that experience elsewhere. So, last September, I was speaking at a conference in Anaheim. And I called my mom and I said, you know, Mom, I'm speaking at this conference in Anaheim. Here's your chance to take the kids to Disneyland. I'll work. You take the kids to Disneyland. Well, then my husband was like, you know, I told you the story about my husband. To get him to go anywhere is like pulling teeth. He was like, well, I want to go to Disneyland. I'm like, really? Yeah, I want to go to Disneyland. I want to see the Star Wars stuff. Well, the Star Wars park wasn't open yet, but there's still a lot of Star Wars stuff there. So I said, all right. So I got everybody plane tickets to go to Disneyland. I paid for the hotel for all of them because I was going to be there anyway. And they went to Disneyland. I'm not kidding you. $1,400 just at Disneyland. That didn't include our plane tickets. That didn't include our hotel. That didn't include all our food that we ate, except for the food in Disneyland. That was the Disneyland tickets alone, and all the stuff that my mom and husband bought the kids. So, if you think about it, you could, for the cost of that Disneyland trip, and that was 2 days at Disneyland. 2 days. For that Disneyland trip, you could get over the ocean to a European country. So, let me tell you my tricks about airfare. Now, first of all, I fly a lot. Airfare is one of those things. Now, like I said, I'm afraid of flying. I know. I've gotten used to it lately, though. But then I take a break from it, and then I get on a plane and it comes back again. So anyway, shop for airfares on certain days and times. That means actually get onto your computer on a Monday or a Tuesday and look for airfares. The reason why is because a lot of people travel on weekends, and so if you go look for your tickets on an early weekday, it'll be lower than those who are looking for short-term tickets towards the weekend. Because
so you're not saying to actually go online on Monday or Tuesday, but choose flights that.
Well,
are on
I'm
Monday.
actually.
Is that what you're saying?
Both of those things.
Okay.
Yes, that was going to be my next thing.
Okay, sorry.
Great question. So, along with that, pick a day to fly that's a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday.
Yeah.
And not a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday. Because those fares are going to be much higher. The second thing is get an airline credit card. No joke. I have 2 Delta credit cards. One is personal, one is for business. I do all of my expenses, grocery shopping, gas, all of that. All of my school expenses go on these credit cards. It costs 40,000 miles. That's it, 40,000 miles to get 1 European ticket. That's not a lot. And when you think about it, you spend a certain amount of money on your credit card, you get bonus miles. If you do all of your regular, everyday shopping, you can get there really quickly. So I talked about booking airfare on certain days. The next thing is clear your cookies on your browser every single time you look. Do you know what that means? Clearing your cookies on your browser? These are not the cookies you eat. These are these are because websites use what they call cookies to track what you're looking at. So, for example, say I'm looking at an airfare, my kid comes in, I get distracted, I go back 2 hours later to go get that airfare. Well, guess what? I've already looked at a cheaper airfare. That website's going to go, oh, this person's been on here because they track you by your IP address. This person's been on here looking at this fare. we're gonna put it up a little bit. So I've seen it go up as much as $300 in 10 minutes even, you know. So the best thing to do is either use a different browser or clear your cookies and your browsing history and go back on and look, and usually you'll see it drop back down. If you don't, do that again and wait a few hours.
Does like the private web browsing thing work, or what is that?
Yes, it can. I haven't used that a whole lot, but I think probably it can, because it can't see your IP address, right? I don't know how that works.
My husband wouldn't be able to see what I'm searching. Not that I'm searching for anything like birthday presents.
Oh, gotcha. You know, I don't know, because I don't know if that tracks your IP address or not. It has to do with your IP address on your computer. I'm not a computer person. I am a computer person because I run an online school, but I'm not like a tech expert. So that was actually a tip that was given to me by a tech expert, and it works. It really does. And then the last thing is, please, please, I beg you, be weary of low-cost airlines. Please. There are some great fares out there. $400 to Europe. Okay, here's the deal about those low-cost airlines. First of all, fear of flying, Elizabeth says, maintenance. Right? Yeah. I mean, these airlines don't keep up their planes as well as other airlines, especially if they're from certain countries where they don't have the standards that like the European Union has or the United States. The second thing about the low-cost airline is that is the cost of your seat only. So by the time you have to pay for a carry-on bag, you have to pay to check a bag, you have to pay for a meal, you have to pay for all your drinks. By the time you pay for that, you will have paid the same amount for the ticket on a major airline. And on a major airline, on an international flight, you get one checked bag for free, one carry-on bag, a meal, it's actually 2 or 3 meals, and all your drinks. So it really pays to just go with a major airline. In addition, I always say be wary of places like Travelocity, Expedia. Sorry, I'm on Facebook Live. Please don't sue me. I'm kidding. But be wary of those low-cost travel websites. And the reason why is because when you book through a regular airline, a major airline, through the airline directly, if there is a change to your itinerary, the airline will take care of you. If you buy it through a wholesaler, you are not guaranteed that the airline will recognize a change in your itinerary. Sometimes they will, but most of the time, it's been my experience that they say, too bad, so sad, you didn't buy it through us. You bought it at a wholesale price. This is what happens. So it's always worth it to pay just a little bit more and book directly through the airline. All right, so here are some of my other tricks and tips for traveling for less. Travel in the low season. As homeschoolers, you can pretty much do whatever you want, right? So travel in the low season. Now, I'm going to talk to you mostly about Europe today because Europe is my area of expertise lies. But the low season in Europe is anywhere between the 1st of January and the 31st of March. Okay? March have 31 days in it? Yes, okay. Good. I got it. You are going to... Hi, how are you? This is one of my students right here. Yay! You are not only going to have less expensive accommodations, less expensive everything, getting into sites and everything, you will also have a less crowded place. So if you're going somewhere like Paris, where I go several times a year, Paris is the most visited city in the entire world. They get 80 million tourists a year. Can you imagine? So So in the summer months when I'm there, so when I go there in like 3 weeks, I get the heck out of Paris and go to Vichy, where we have one of our programs, but I also have an apartment there, so we stay there. We come back to Paris for the last 3 days before we go home, and it is crowded. You can't even move sometimes. There's lines around the corner to get in places. Travel in the low season, trust me, especially if you're going to France, you will have no issues with that stuff. Stay in a hostel instead of a hotel. Now this is if you're traveling and you don't need to have a lot of space. Hostels, there's a difference between a youth hostel and a hostel. So a youth hostel is typically for students or student groups or younger people. A hostel is a place that is like a very budget hotel. Most hostels have bathrooms en suite, so you can have your own bathroom. They might have bunk beds or like very basic beds, but they have everything you need. You're not going to be, you know, in your hotel or hostel room a lot anyway, because you're going to be out connecting with people, right? So hostels are a great option. They offer breakfast. A lot of times they have a common kitchen where you can cook instead of eating out every night. So this is a great option. Now, if you're a family and you want to, you know, kind of keep your own schedule and you want it quiet, I suggest an apartment hotel. There are tons of them all around Europe. Now, apartments are very small in Europe compared to what they are here, obviously, but you get a small kitchen. We have an apartment in France, so because, you know, they typically eat dinner in France at 9 o'clock at night. So, and my kids are very, you know, my son is autistic, like I said, so we're very routine oriented, and so, and plus I like my kids to go to bed at like 8. I'm one of those, yeah. I'm in bed like the second my kids go to bed. But anyway, so we typically stay in an apartment, and then when we're in Paris, if we're there for longer than, say, you know, a couple of days, we'll stay in an apartment hotel called the Adagio, which we absolutely love. There's other chains as well. And I strongly caution against Airbnb. And the reason why is because, A, it's not guaranteed in Europe. In France, they have a very strict policy about what they call hôtellerie, and it's accommodations in tourist places. And so the Airbnbs that are there are technically not supposed to be there. Second of all, I had a camera in my Airbnb one time. So I was done. It's like, no more, no more Airbnb. So definitely the apartment hotels, they're regulated, they're cleaned regularly. It's a really good option, and they're not very expensive. I mean, they're not even any more than an Airbnb would be. Use public transportation or walk. Many, many cities abroad have excellent public transportation systems. Even in Canada. I was just in Montreal last week. Like I said, I travel a lot. I was in Montreal last week, and I Ubered everywhere just because I was going to meetings and I was going places and I wanted to do it on my own time, but they have a metro system there that's amazing. Paris has a metro system. Don't take taxis, don't take, you know, take the public transportation. It's worth it, it's cheap, and a lot of people are like, oh, I don't want to take the subway, it's dangerous. Okay, yes, it might smell like urine a little bit, but it's very safe. You know, if you're aware of yourself and you know how to travel safely, then you're fine. Visit the grocery store. Okay, I'm such a language nerd. Like, when I visit the grocery store, I'm constantly thinking about all the linguistic richness that there is at the grocery store. Think about it. Everything is labeled, so you can learn words. You can learn how to ask questions. right? I mean, it's just extremely linguistically rich. And also, it's a great experience for your kids. You take them to the grocery store, let them pick out something new that they've never tried before. Because I found with my kids, I don't know about your kids, but I found with mine, if they get to choose, they're more likely to try it than if I say, try this, right? So we go to the grocery store all the time, and France has like amazing grocery stores. I can't even tell you, like my kids find something new every single time we're there, and we're there quite a bit. So, and also the grocery store is a great way to connect. Now in some countries, making small talk is not really a thing. Like they kind of look at you like, who are you? Why are you talking to me? But at the same time, it's a great way to connect with people because you are going to talk with the people who work at the grocery store. You are going to talk, maybe you could ask a question to somebody like, oh, do these grapes have seeds in them? Or something to connect with somebody. So that the purpose is not just to make small talk, but to actually like engage with somebody rather than walking in, grabbing your stuff, and going out. Eat at restaurants outside the tourist areas. They're going to mark up the prices at the restaurants outside within the tourist areas like crazy. So I would go outside, ask the locals where they eat if they were going to go have dinner out or lunch out. Grab a sandwich on the street and walk. Be a flaneur. Remember I taught you that word? Now, remember it. Flaneur, flaneur. That's what I want everybody out here to be a flaneur. All right, how are we doing? Oh gosh, I don't know if I'm gonna make it. I get talking and then I'm like, woo! Okay, so myth number 2, my kids are too young. Oh my gosh, I hear this all the time, and I'm like, no, they're not. You know, a lot of people think it's overwhelming to travel with kids, but here's the thing: if you travel with your kids, you just have to embrace it. They're little. They're gonna get tired. They're gonna, complain. They're gonna be like, I'm hungry, I want a snack, I don't want to sit here, no. But you just have to embrace it. And this is a lesson for them, right? So, traveling with children helps them develop skills that will last their entire lives. I had talked about this earlier. They will develop skills of, like I said, of connection to other people, problem-solving skills, planning skills. They will go to work when they're older, and they will be with somebody who's different from them at work, or has a different personality, or a different work style. And because they have these experiences, they will be more flexible in their thinking and able to work out situations. It promotes critical thinking and develops the prefrontal cortex. It promotes empathy and gives positive social messaging. This is really, really important because think about all the social messages that your kids receive every single day. You know what I mean by social messaging? Things that they hear from outside, right? They could see something on the news and receive a social message. They might hear a political view, and that's a social message. They might see somebody being mean to somebody else because they're different, and that's a social message. So changing those negative social messages into positive ones by saying, this person's different, but look how much fun we had. Or this, political view, I'm going to form my own viewpoint. So it helps kids actually increase their ability to think for themselves. And I don't know about you, but I have a kid who thinks for himself all the time, and sometimes I'm like, okay, this is what I want. Right? Increase self-esteem. They gain confidence because they're finding their way in the world, right? They're gaining skills, and that gives them confidence. When they're successful at something, no matter how big or how small, that feeds, what my 6-year-old said, that fills your bucket, right? My 6-year-old said, he came up to me the other day and He goes, Mommy, I can see you're really sad today. I'm going to give you a hug. And so he came and gave me a hug. And he goes, did I fill your bucket? And I said, yes, you did. All right, here's another myth. It's dangerous. It's scary. How many of you have this feeling it's dangerous? Anybody? Oh, I usually have about 3 in this talk that say it's dangerous. So we'll go over this one quickly, though, since everybody says. But listen, fear of travel is called podophobia. And here's the thing about this. We often fear what is unknown, right? So knowledge is power. It empowers us. And I just lost my train of thought. Yay! So we often fear what is unknown. Oh, yes. So along these lines, we tend to think that what we do and how we live is the norm, and how everyone else lives is different and is not the norm. But think about it. You go to another country, we're the weirdos, right? We're the ones who don't live the norm in that country. So every way that everyone lives is the norm. But we fear what is not the norm for us. A lot of people think that poor equals dangerous. Poor countries do not equal dangerous. Now, there are countries that you really don't want to go to, like some of the war-torn countries in Africa or, places like that. But I would go to Africa in a heartbeat with my kids. I mean, there's a lot of cool places to go, and just because they're developing countries does not mean that they are dangerous. A difference of religion does not equal dangerous. This one I see all the time. All the time. Learning about different religions is a great way to connect with people. Doesn't mean you have to agree. We have this idea that just because somebody doesn't agree with you means that they're automatically against you. Wouldn't it be so boring in this world if we all thought the same way and we were all the same? I want everybody to go out and learn about other people because that's what makes life interesting. All right, we have a terrorism abroad fear from a lot of people. Here's a statistic I read while I was writing one of my books that's coming out very soon, as soon as I finish it. You are more likely to get killed by a cow than you are by a terrorist attack. There are 20 people per million killed by cows in the United States every year. True story. There's less than one person per million killed in a terrorist attack every year in the European Union. So, your own body is more likely to kill you than a terrorist attack. And again, if you hold yourself back because you're scared of something, you're never going to live. And how empowering is it to overcome a fear? I told you I'm terrified of flying 3 times in this talk, right? But I get on a plane and I go because I refuse to live in fear. I prefer to live. So I'm going to tell you a little story. This is a picture of me. Has anybody heard of the gilet jaune? Or the yellow vest in France? Yeah, you probably saw it on my Facebook. So these are some gilets jaunes. This was taken in March when I was in France, in Lyon. Has anybody been to Lyon? Oh my gosh, it's my second favorite city in France. My first favorite is Marseille, and my second is Lyon. Great city. So the yellow vest, it started as a movement basically because there was a tax on gas in France. And yellow vest, when you break down in your car in France, it's the law that you have to get out of your car and wear a yellow vest so the authorities know that you need help with your car. So they're wearing the yellow vest as a sort of protest against this gas tax. It has, because it's still going on, it has turned into a movement of people of lower socioeconomic status, of the working class in France, and them being able to earn a living wage. So they have been gathering. And if you know France, you know that we as French people love to protest everything. Love to go, rah, rah, rah. I don't want this. Get rid of it. So that's exactly what they're doing, but it's usually like teachers' unions that do that, or, you know, people of a little bit higher socioeconomic status that do it. So this is also a movement of the working class, and so it's seen differently across the world. So right before I left for France in March, they had on the news, I think it was the day before, that these people were destroying all the Champs-Élysées, that they had thrown fire everywhere, that they went up in the Arc de Triomphe and smashed things, right? So I was like, what? So I don't believe that, but it was all over the news. I just can tell you right now, I stood on the Champs-Élysées and I went up to the Arc de Triomphe and nothing was destroyed. Nothing. They were peacefully marching down the street. So then I arrived in Lyon. I had meetings in Vichy, and I had been at my apartment a few days, and I have a very good friend that lives in Lyon. And so I went to go visit him, and they were having a demonstration. This is called the Place Bellecour. It's like the big place in Lyon. And I said to my friend, I said, I want to go talk to them. And he goes, why? And I said, because I want to understand their point of view. I want to know what the reason is that they're doing this, because I don't completely understand. The information that I've been hearing is one-sided. I want to know the other side. So I walked up to this guy. He was more than happy to speak to me. I got on TV. Yeah, my friend was like, are you kidding me? And so I talked to this guy, and he goes, well, don't you know what's going on? I said, no. I said, I'm American. I live in the U.S. He goes, no, you're not. I don't have an accent when I speak French. So, so anyway, so we talked, and he told me his side of the story. And even though I didn't agree with everything he was saying, because I happen to be in love with Emmanuel Macron. Shh. No, I'm kidding. I love Emmanuel Macron. You know who that is, right? Oh, you're like, what? He's the president of France. And he's my age, and he's super young, and a lot of people are mad at him because they're the French, and the French like to complain about everything, even if they agree with it. Because let me tell you something about us in France, is that even if we agree with you, we'll argue with you just because we like to argue. So even though I didn't completely agree with everything that he was saying, I got to hear a different perspective. I connected with this person, and I may have not spoken to him otherwise. I could have very easily walked straight through there, because I was on my way to the grocery store, because my kids are not allowed to have candy in the U.S. because of the coloring, and they don't have the artificial colors in France, so I was going to buy them a bunch of candy before I came back to the U.S. because I'm a nice mom like that. And so I could have very easily just walked across and gone to the store, but I didn't. I stopped. I talked to this guy, and I got an understanding. And then I called my husband a little while later, and I said, I talked to the Gilets jaunes. He goes, are you crazy? They're dangerous. I said, no, they're not dangerous. He was so nice and explained everything to me, and all they were doing was standing there with signs. They weren't doing anything. They weren't throwing things. They weren't tackling each other. They were very peacefully demonstrating. So when you step out of your comfort zone and you talk to people, you find out other points of view, and that's really important. All right, so we talked about the power of international international travel earlier, about personal growth and maturity. Ambassadorship, this is the first step in diplomacy. And the reason why I say that is because you are an ambassador of your country and your community. But you're also learning about other people. So think about this. If we traveled more and connected more with people, how powerful is it to come together in such a way where people from abroad don't see us by certain people and things they see on the TV, or vice versa, right? You know, people on the news, people might be watching the news over here and see the Gilets jaunes as being a certain way, but when you go over and you learn about people and you connect in that way, it gives a positive viewpoint. And the more people that do that, the more it grows. We break through stereotypes. So stereotypes are simply cultural misunderstandings. The French are rude, that's a stereotype. What's the truth? We're not rude. We're just not overly friendly and smiley because that's a cultural thing. We're very stoic. I saw a t-shirt last night on Facebook that I'm probably going to buy that's like, French, have a heart of gold but won't show you. And it said something like, your best friend until you make me mad. Things like that. And that's exactly how the French are. Things are temporary. I told you that. Things are temporary, but memories last forever. Doing good. 13 minutes. All right. Traveling with young people. This is a picture from last summer. This was our immersion class. We're getting ready to leave in 3 weeks now. And that was at the Place Bellecour in Lyon. And I love to do these travel programs with young people because it is absolutely my privilege to see things that I've seen all the time, things that I take for granted through new eyes. It's amazing. Every time I go to France, I go back to the first time I ever laid eyes on it. And I was young at that time. But it's magical to watch kids experiencing things for the first time. Even if it's your first time as well. Children are going to see things from a different lens because they don't have as many social messages as we do as adults. All right, so preparing to travel with intent. So a lot of times when we're going to go someplace, with the exception of France, because my kids have been to France more times than a lot of people have ever been out of their cities, but with other places that we go, we do a lot of preparation ahead of time, and this is not just like travel preparation. This is preparation on how to actually enter into a culture and be able to connect in a meaningful way. So, first of all, explore your own culture. How did you become who you are, and how did your culture shape you? I'm going to show you an exercise in a minute that I do with my kids. Learn about the culture you are visiting. Research and cook recipes. Learn some of the language. This is so important. When you speak to a person in your language, you speak to his head. When you speak to a person in his language, you speak to his heart. So learn some phrases. And in France, this is especially important. French people are more likely to open up if you simply say bonjour. Do you know how often I'm in France and an English speaker walks up and to a restaurant or whatever, and the person standing outside, what do you call that, the hostess, or the host says bonjour, and the person says hi, and then I see this look on their face that shuts down. It is an extremely rude thing in France to not ever say bonjour. You say bonjour to everyone. When you enter into an elevator, seriously, you have to say bonjour, 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 bonjour to every single person. I'm not kidding. But that is like the doorway. If you can say hello in that language, you have one foot in the door. Things like thank you, please, just common phrases. Study the etiquette of that country. Going back to saying bonjour. Every time you walk into a shop, you say bonjour. Every time you leave a shop, you say merci, au revoir. You don't put your hands underneath the table. That's considered extremely rude. You always put your hands on top of the table in France when you're eating. Even your elbows on the table are okay. So find out the etiquette. Learn about the religion of the country. Visit their religious places. Churches will always welcome you. Synagogues and mosques will always welcome you. Temples will always welcome you. So go and learn, and they want you to come and learn. And you can even do that in your own community before you leave. You can go to a mosque, and they will bring you in, and they will show you everything. And we did that, and my kids were fascinated, absolutely fascinated. Watch TED Talks about language and culture and travel. I love TED Talks so much. I did one. So much I love TED Talks. Cultural awareness and global citizenship lessons. So this is something that we do beforehand. So my kids have a person. Each of them has a person like this. And the goal is to, I'll show you the instructions here. The goal is to draw on the inside of the person, draw or write pictures that illustrate who you are from the inside, from your choices and your development. On the outside, write words and draw pictures or things that illustrate who you are from the outside, like your family, your culture, media, other people, those social messages. And then what happens is, every single time we go somewhere or have an experience, they add to their person. And they see, and in fact, we make copies of the person at each stage, and then they can see how much they've grown. And the other goal of this is to teach your kids how this is influenced by this and vice versa. So you see these outside things from what's inside, but these outside things also shape how you see things from the inside. Does that make sense? It's like an illustration of growth. I also do this with my immersion students before they leave. This is one that was done by a student. This is her before. She's going this year, so we haven't done her after yet. But as you can see, things that she likes, her parts of her personality, and things from the outside there. So that is her. And if you're coming tomorrow to my Global Citizenship Education Talk, we're actually going to do this exercise in there. I have my little people in Excel. Okay. Can't travel yet? Well, travel virtually. Do as much as you can to learn. Do country studies. Celebrate holidays. Have international cooking nights in your house. Watch TED Talks. Host an exchange student. This is a great one. There are programs that will let you host for 2 weeks or 3 weeks during the summer. There are programs that will let you host for the whole year, for a semester. Hosting an exchange student is a great way to initiate your kids into culture. Give the gift of experiences, not things, opera, plays, all of that. And the list goes on. We only have about 5 minutes left. Does anyone have any questions? I talked a lot. No questions? Wanted to leave it. Usually I get lots of questions. Well, that means I did a good job. Yes?
My daughter really wants to learn French this year.
Okay.
Is there anything that you would say would help make it a positive experience?
Come visit me.
In France?
No.
Oh.
Okay. There's one of my students right here. She can tell you.
He's studying French 2 semesters. He has to next to him because I can help him with his homework. But I'm getting to learn along with him, and that's been great for both of us.
Aren't you guys doing Korean and Italian this year too,
Yes,
or something like that? Yeah. I have to look.
We have the exhibitions.
Yeah.
So we've had a great experience with, because you're not just learning the language with Madam Porter, you get recipes to try and different holidays to celebrate along with, and so you really get the experience of the culture with the learning the language.
Yeah. And if you want to know about our method, that's at 2:30 this afternoon. I'm talking about that. Any other questions? Go ahead.
I guess I missed where you said you were located.
I'm in Washington State,
Okay.
but the school's online.
The school is online?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Exactly.
Okay,
Yep.
and how do we find out more information on that?
Visit me in the.
You have a booth?
Yes.
Okay.
I was supposed to be here just as a speaker, and I just ended up deciding to set up over there. Any other questions? All right, well, I also have a book. I'm going to plug my book here. It's called Pathways to Language Fluency. It explains some of this stuff in here. My school also has a workshop on this exact thing that is a self-paced workshop that you can do. We have country studies that are coming out at the end of August. All of my teachers are doing a country study on the country that they come from. And we also have a little print study because, of course, I have to have that. So anyway, go ahead.
I was wondering, where do you find out the receptive for the culture, like so if you're wanting to go and not offend anybody, how would you look that?
I mean, there's lots of resources online. Again, my school has stuff. But yeah, there's lots of resources online. There's lots of stuff that you can find. I mean, seek out people in your community that come from there even. I mean, the more connections you can make, the better. And yeah, so yeah.
Do you have any thoughts on domestic travel?
Yes, I know that there is. I don't travel domestically as well. I do, but it's more for work. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of really cool places to go and see, and the same stuff applies here. Like when we were in New Orleans, I did my talk, and then I blew off the rest of the conference. And my husband and I went and visited because I felt like that was the bigger. The more important thing was for us to connect. So there's definitely lots of things to see in the U.S. And we're actually working on a workshop for the specifically for the U.S. as well. I have one of my teachers who is the expert on that, doing it. So, any other questions? Go ahead.
Along those lines, like road tripping in the U.S., do you have tips or suggestions on how to find good places along a road trip route?
You do? Okay. Go
An
ahead.
app called Road Trippers. Yeah. It'll see what route you want to take, and it will raise in a certain amount of miles off of your route, your main route. It'll take you.
I was
lots
gonna.
of apps and
Yeah,
stuff like
I was
that.
gonna suggest that one. There's also a World Schooling Facebook group that has a lot of great suggestions. They don't just do outside of the U.S., but inside of the U.S. as well. So lots of great stuff. There's also Canada that's really cool. We're just starting a new program to Canada actually, so much stuff in Canada to see as well. So, any other questions? All right, well, everybody, if you have additional questions, please feel free to come and see me in the exhibitor hall. I'm happy to answer your question. I'm speaking again at 2:30 and not in this room, but I think it's Sierra or something, on our method for language. And then tomorrow I'm doing a global citizenship education workshop. So thank you so much for attending, and I hope to see you in a little while.